think there are quite a lot of challenges when it comes to implementing AI in real life.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it is not as sexy as people make it seem to be,
Yeah.
right? So we start with a false expectations.
This is the future of AI as far as work goes, but now what about building the actual products of it? How are you guys building your AI products, and what is kind of the thought process going behind it?
So basically, the thought process is what can we do with AI to provide more value than we currently have? For example, let's say you want to make sure you're selling a product,
Mm-hmm.
and in that product, there are hundreds of reviews, but you can't go through all the reviews altogether, right? It's
Yeah.
going to take hours. So AI can help you summarize those reviews and give you the bullet points or the
Mm-hmm.
cliff notes like, hey, X percentage of people have said good things about it, X percentage not so good, and these are the top highlights of it. So, in
Okay.
that way, this is how we start with our uh, problem statement. Like, this, we want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which AI product can help us do that? That's next step.
Yeah.
And then the next step after that is which skills do we need to get this particular skill to get that problem solved.
Yeah. All right. So, but you have to have a leader somewhere in there that's pushing this, right? Like you can't just there got to be somebody that is pushing the strategy, that's thinking out the box. There has to be someone in there to do that. Like how if there is no one in your company doing it, like if you're sitting there in your company and you're noticing like no one's doing this initiative, there's not like there's chief AI people, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably the technology people, but what happens if your technology person is not embracing it, or they're not doing what they should be doing, and
Yeah.
they're just kind of old school thinking like, no,
Yeah.
like I'm just going to do it how it is. Like
Yeah.
you being either maybe, middle level or a manager, like how can you push the kind of culture in that
Yeah.
way?
First of all, I think like for middle managers, you need to identify a champion in a bigger company because there are a lot of things that a big company from a strategic level is doing. So more often than not, there will be somebody pushing for this.
Yeah.
So first of all, try to identify them. If you're not able to identify them, then try to make a business case for your product at least that this is the reason I want this and I want those further investments. That would be the second point. And even if that does not work, just start creating awareness among your people, among your SDEs to get at least up to speed on this because there will come a time where even the big techs, even if they are not aware of it and if they're not interested in it, will have to get interested.
Yeah.
And by the time you want to make sure that you're ready to take on that challenge.
All right. So like for me, being an entrepreneur, so I did last year. I tried to work for another company. Didn't work out. I mean, I've been entrepreneur right out of my MBA, so like that's all I've known.
I respect that.
And like trying, I was like, oh, like let me dabble into it, doing contract. And man, I was fighting tooth and nail with the executive. It was just like their mentality is just way different, right? It's just
Yeah.
like you said, being an entrepreneur, you're just like, man, we're doing what's working. We're doing like we just have a different concept, and it feels like we have almost different motivations than they do. And when those motivations don't align, there's just a lot of headbutting, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like if I'm thinking like if I'm middle software engineer, right, I'm coming up with all these cool ideas. If you're an innovative one, at least, like you're coming to all these cool ideas, and you're like, man, this could save this time, and then you go to executives and be like, oh, let's do this, and they're like, to me, like I don't even know if they have the motivation to do it. Like it's kind of it's a hard thing to balance. So when I feel like you're working for a company,
Yeah.
when you're an entrepreneur, you're like, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna see what happens, right?
Yeah.
And because you don't have to answer nobody, you're just testing everything and seeing what's working or not. And this actually kind of, I had this thought at the last topic we had was being, you have the entrepreneurs, right, the small companies, and you have the big companies, right? There's a huge gap between the two.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, with the gaps of just social or rich and not rich, I think that gap is going to decrease a lot
Mm-hmm.
because the big companies, you're going to have to go through 20 different levels of approval
Mm-hmm.
to do something,
Yeah.
and everything's going to change by the time you get that approval.
Yep.
Where the entrepreneurs and the small companies just, let's do that tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that dynamic, which is a dynamic in general, but AI makes that times 10
Yeah.
because it changes so quickly. And if you're like what we said with the planning, right? Like if you're planning for something a year, 2 years from now, even if you're planning something 6 months to 12
Yeah.
months from now, it's too
Yeah.
late,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If you're trying to get approval for something in a month, it's too late,
Yeah.
right? So I think the gap of big companies, just they're so big, they got so many levels, right,
Yeah.
of getting approval to do something, where the small companies just go, they just,
Yeah.
I think that
I would
gap is going to
say,
decrease.
yeah, I would say the big companies are going to be forced by AI to change their standard operating procedures.
Mm-hmm.
And in that change, the leaders are going to realize this very soon. And I think some of them are already realizing it. And they are empowering those people within the company who understand and adapt to this change.
Yeah.
And there is where I see the big companies are forced. Now the adaptable managers becomes more powerful to
Mm-hmm.
take decisions, and thereby we are trying to be as nimble as possible.
Yeah.
But I do understand, as the thing stands right now, there are a lot of red tape that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of it, I also want to make sure that there are big companies in different sectors that does require regulations. For example, if you are in securities, if you are in financial market, if you are in, I would say, a drug making company, right? There are regulations that does have red tape,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a reason for doing that. But where there is comparatively less red tape or approvals needed,
Yeah.
those companies need to start working right now
Yeah.
and identify leaders within the team or within the organization who are adaptable and are coming up with these ideas. As you mentioned, right, there will
Mm-hmm.
be some people who will be doing that,
Yeah.
and empowering them so that they can take decisions on behalf of the company.
Yeah.
But I tell you the problem where is, uh, in a bigger company, people or the managers, they act as agents for the company to take decisions on their behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Now those agents are humans. Their motivations comes from multiple different places, like getting a promotion,
Yeah.
getting a particular project done, or just being not as adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
right? So those human factors play a role in
Yeah.
them making that decisions. But AI doesn't care,
Yeah.
right? AI is emotionless, trying to find the most operationally fit.
Mm-hmm.
Thereby, humans, we need to get our act together, and we need to not get emotionless, but we need to be quicker with our decisions.
And that kind of hits on my point of why I think small entrepreneurs are going to prosper way more than
Yeah.
corporate or even middle-sized companies, because with us is we have no ego essentially when it
Yeah.
comes to this, because it's our money. like we're not like, I'm trying
Yes,
to
you're true.
trying to make someone look good. It's like, I'm trying
Yeah.
to make more money. Like
Yeah.
it's not a persona that we're trying to do. We're not trying to seem, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everything is bottom line for us. So we don't care. Like, it's like, if it quicker, if it's faster, if it's more efficient, it makes me more money, I'm doing it. Where in corporate, that's not always the case.
Yes.
It's like, that could be better, but that doesn't make me look as good.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I feel
Even
like that.
personal relationships play a role in sometimes which kind of technology you're choosing versus another.
Right.
And that may be hurting you in the short term,
Yeah.
but you're like, yeah, like, I know that guy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to make a big difference when building these things. So when I'm building these products, it's very hard, because it's you don't know what you don't know until you do it, and you can't control it. Right. So like I built a tool. It was like a financial analyst.
Yeah.
Right. And they write code and they write SQL, and it will pull data. And I use the OpenAI's the OpenAI's assistant API with the data interpreter. And I built it, and it was cool. Right. And I gave it to the client, and the client was like, well, like, why did it answer it this way? I don't know. Like it just did it. Like, I can't tell it what to do. Like it just did it that way. Like when I did it, did something different. Like so
Yeah.
when building these things, it's super hard to explain to people. Like it's not like code where it's like you know exactly what you're gonna get. It's not like analytics where you know exactly what KPI is, right? Sometimes like when you give it, like I give it metadata and stuff to come up with the calculations, and I'd be like, hey, use this calculation. Sometimes they don't use that calculation. It comes up with a calculation on its own.
Yeah.
And I can't tell the client, like, why did it do that? No clue. I told it what to do and it's not listening to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, man. But
Yeah.
it's like but it's one of those things where you have to accept it. It's like,
Yes.
it's the technology. That is the part of it. And then how I explain it to them is like, it's almost like you talking to a person or talking to an employee. It's like, you can tell them one thing, they can still do something else sometimes, right? They still make mistakes. So if you get out the mindset of this is like a program and it's going to do exactly what I tell it to do, to being like, no, this is just another employee that's going to make mistakes. They're going to do things differently. They're not going to listen to me sometimes.
Yeah.
And utilize it in that way, it will be less frustrating, and you also be able to figure out how to create systems to account for those flaws, just like you would do for an employee, right?
I'll tell you how I try to explain this to my team is that previously coding or data analytics were more deterministic. You could determine how the output would look like.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the concept has moved from being deterministic to probabilistic. And in probability, you'll get the answers you want 80%, for example, the times, but 20% you might get something random, right? And you need to be open to that eventuality. And if you're not, then you're going back to being deterministic. And being deterministic is like the old fashioned now, right? So one way to like guard yourself from that is actually the training data that you are trying to feed in to the model that you are building. You can try to make it as tuned or customized for your own needs, but you need to be able to understand that there will be a margin of error that can go beyond from 1 to 10% at the least. And you need to be okay with that. And it's hard for a lot of people to digest. Like, okay, you're talking about 10% error rate. But I'm like, dude, you're getting 90% right on with almost 1/5 of the effort. So that is something of value.
So a good example of something that I came up with. So doing email marketing, right? Somebody, like, let's say somebody comes in through one of my lead magnets, and so the concept I came up with, someone comes through one of my lead magnets. On the lead magnet, I get their name, their position, their company, their department, right? I'm selling AI solutions, right? So what I was going to build was a tool that just connects to my ConvertKit, and whenever they come in, the AI is going to automatically come up with like the top 5 AI solution ideas for that position, for that company type, and for that industry, right? And it's going to automatically just send it and be like, hey, welcome to Visual Intelligence, whatever. Here is some top 10 ideas for your industry. And then shoot that out automatically, right? Like, we'll offer this, and this, right? And let's say I get 100 people, right? And I shoot that offer out, and it's not necessarily like an offer, but it's more like, hey, here's some ideas, let's brainstorm, right? 10 of those emails might be jacked up, right? Like you said, like 10 of them might be jacked up. The other 90 will be good. But it's like, instead of me manually sending 100 of those emails, I'll accept 10 emails being jacked up where I can automate 90 emails, right? So it's like accepting, like you said, 10% is going to be messed up, but it saves me so much time to not send those other 90s that it's worth those 10% messed up, right? But being an entrepreneur, I can take that risk. Corporate can't take that risk, right? They'll have lawsuits and stuff. If someone's like, man, like your email had misspellings, it said this unethical thing, and I'm be like, sorry, like but if they do it, you get news releases, it's a whole different thing.
We care a lot about the PR for the company, and rightly so. Because we stand for a brand. We stand for something where people automatically associate us with something or the other. And therefore that PR risk is high.
That's why I said, that's why I think this is going to hurt big companies more than, because like entrepreneurs like us, we can be like, we'll take that 10%. I don't care. Right. And you'd be like, no, I'm not going to do that. But we're becoming way more like we're growing now, you know, where you can't, because you got these other considerations that we either ignore or we just don't care, or we're just like,
rightly so. But I would say like the flipping the coin would say that if a customer, if a normal person in the US trusts a particular brand, they are more likely to use the products that the brand produces versus a newcomer, right? So I understand there is where the PRS comes from, because people put trust in us by default, right? And therefore they are open to using it. They are open to like spending X% or X dollars as subscription cost and see how it works, because they know from this company I'm gonna get something which is gonna be authentic. But with a lot of like new startups, maybe the product might work for a month or two, or maybe 6 months, and then it may die out. So a lot of early adopters are really good target audience for like the startups. But when we are addressing a general public with different trust aspects, there is the PR risk comes in. So I would not necessarily think that it will take all the market share, but I do recognize that the startups who are leveraging AI are slowly gonna chip away the market share from the big companies.
For sure, for sure.
Unless we adapt faster.
Which is hard with corporate. I mean, it's just what
hard.
it is, right? It's too big, like it's just too slow. And I mean, just think of kind of like back in the day before the internet, right? Like you could move super slow then, right? And nothing would happen. The internet came, it was like you can move kind of slow, but not. But like now, it's like, man, like you said, you got 6 months contracts. Like you got to be able to adapt. So I'm curious if this is going to be like a shift, kind of like the internet bubble, right? Like you brick and mortar, you got all this cost, like all this, overhead. People that went online, like they survived, like blog, you know what I mean? I wonder like how this is going to affect people, and it's gonna affect big tech companies too, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I think the top 4 or 5 is still going to be, because they're building the AIs, which is smart, right? They're like, use my AI, right? Like I'm not competing with you. But the other
they're
ones
actually building the AI for you to use, right?
Exactly. So it's so they're smart in that aspect, right? But it's like the other ones, it's kind of like, all right, you're not building them, so what you doing, right? All right, so let's talk about challenges. Like what challenges you face when building these products, which are going to be totally different than my challenges.
Yeah, I think there are quite a lot of challenges when it comes to implementing AI in real life. First of all, it is not as sexy as people make it seem to be. Right. So we start with the false expectations, and when we talk about these to the sales or the business development people, it is their job to sell, right? And while selling, they paint a rosy picture. And while in practicality, we try to attain that rosy picture, but it's not always the case. So that is one challenge, expectation versus what we deliver. Secondly, with so fast changing of technology in itself, our core, I would say, power is our software developers who can make and do great things. They have to adapt faster, and even in them, they are having doubts like, hey, like, is AI going to replace my job? And that is making them a bit afraid of trying new things. So, making them aware that, hey, you need to adapt, you need to be able to use this and use this for the advent of the company. So that is the second challenge. And the third one, I think you alluded to just a little before, is if there are 100,000 startups trying to do the same thing as a big tech, it's you're fighting against 100,000 armies at once, because they are backed by AI agents, which make them exponentially grow their power in providing the same value. So making yourself relevant in this time and ages is again not easy. And the fourth and the last point I would say is the PR risk. we can adapt faster. We can do a lot of things way better than a lot of people, but there are going to be mistakes along the way, and those mistakes may have high price.
Yeah.
And
Even if it's
it's a
small
manager's
one.
decision
Yeah.
that we want to take that high price or not, because it may directly impact my compensation. It may directly impact my position in the company.
Yeah.
So these are the four major challenges I see big corporate leaders uh, taking in a big tech.
And for me, like if you're already salary, right? So it's kind of
Yeah.
like you get your money no matter what. But
Mhm.
if you have this risk of I make a decision and even if 1% of that decision, like 1% chance, if that 1% happens, like that could lose me my job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's gonna stop you from making those mistakes, right?
Yes.
Where for me, it's like that 1%, right? It's like yeah, that 99% made me a lot of money though, right? Like I got one angry customer and I'm not getting a news article about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm be like, sorry, man, like, here goes a gift card or something. And that's not going to kill me, right? So like my risk is not the same. Like I'll take that risk any day,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
whereas you is like, yeah, like that 99 may make the company a lot of money. It's not gonna make me a lot because then you got the personal part of it, right?
Yes.
It's like it's not gonna make me a lot of money. I'll lose my job if that happens. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not taking that risk, right? And so yeah, that mentality
And
is
on top of
completely
it,
different.
right? Like it's you also always think about the company valuation too, right? Like let's say if you are working for a company which is listed in the stock market, right?
Yeah.
And if you take a bad decision, and such a pivotal decision that impacts your stock price itself,
Yeah.
that is going to make waves within a company.
Yeah.
And you're going to be held responsible, like, hey, like, why did you take this decision? And there are going to be whole litany of questions that you would have to answer, like, this is the reason why, this is the reason why. And then the risk appetite, there is where it becomes smaller,
Yeah.
because not everyone would want to take that, even though sometimes when it goes up, nobody questions it. But because of your decision, if it goes down by even, let's say, 5 or 10%,
Yeah.
that's
So
a
many
big
moving parts.
hit.
Yeah.
And you have to answer.
That's why I wasn't good at corporate. There's just too much to me, it's too much irrelevant moving parts. It's like let's get to the best thing, the best solution, and then you're like, no, maybe let's get to this solution because it's kind of good, but it's safe. Like that part it just bothers me. It's which is why I became an entrepreneur. Right. All right. So from my point of view, the challenges is. I mean, you're implementing these things. Like I said, I do it for my company, and I'm doing it for other companies, right? Sometimes I get so excited with the new tech, right? And it's like you can do so many powerful, cool things with things, but it's like it's not really practical, right? Like it's like I tried the Agent Swarm thing, and I was trying to. So the what I was trying to do was write. I wrote code where it would write functions for my assistant API. And then I use this, it's called Open Interpreter, which is a AI that so pretty much it allows you to run code on your machine.
Okay.
It can control your machine essentially. So I would have one AI like come out, research with what function I needed. I have another, and then pass it to the other AI, and he would write the code. And then I had a senior developer AI that would review the code. And then I would pass it to another AI, which was the Open Interpreter, which would run the code in my Python locally to see if the code ran successfully.
I see.
And then he would report back to the advance, and then they would work back together until they got a successful run with no errors. And
That's
like,
a good system, by the way. Yeah.
I thought so too, right? And I mean, I spent days working on it, and I can get it work sometimes, and sometimes it wouldn't work, right? Like it would almost like, because I just wanted to run all the time, and it was like, man, like it's almost as fast copy and pasting, right? Because of the input, like you can't predict it all the time, right? Like it doesn't always work. So it's like conceptually it's a super cool idea, but it's like I can get to this point, copy and paste, and then like it's the same time as me figuring out why it's not working all the time, right? So when I'm building things, the taking myself down to be like, man, this is super cool, but I can't really use this in production. Like it's not gonna always work. Like trying to take those two things apart is sometimes hard. And so like, but then you gotta like really like figure out what is it good for, right?
Would you like, if I could probe a little bit, if you don't mind me probing a little bit on that particular topic, right? What were you trying to achieve, like as your endpoint, and then if you have to explain to me like two top problems that you had in achieving those.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking this question is because I'm trying to understand. I understand the system is very efficient,
Mm-hmm.
but where were you trying to hit the roadblocks? Where the roadblocks
Yeah.
were?
So give you more information. So with the OpenAI Assistant API, you can give it
Hmm.
functions, function calling.
Yeah.
So for like the financial analyst one, right? So he can pull data from Snowflake.
Mm-hmm.
He can use the Google API to pull news articles.
Okay.
He could read the news articles and then summarize them. Like all of those are separate functions, right?
Yes.
And in Python, you have a specific function to do each
To
one
call
of
them.
those.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to build was an AI that would build those functions for me, and I can just tell it like, hey, build a function to scrape the internet or something, right?
Got
Scrape a website, right? Like
Yeah.
build that function and test it and make sure it works before you give it to me, right?
Hmm.
And so after that, I was going to be like, now think of your own functions and then just give them to me, and then it'd just be like a library of functions I can use. And I could get it to work. Sometimes it errored out just because it provided an answer in the wrong syntax that it didn't like. It wasn't JSON when I told it put in JSON, like
Okay.
and then it would just error, and then I got to go see what's going on and then try to fix the error and be like, man, I told you put it in JSON format. and so like it just because it never did exactly, it did it sometimes, but sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
And so like it like trying to get it to do what you want, and it like sometimes like I get frustrated. I'm like I'll really like write it, but like I told you to do this. Like I'm talking to somebody. This season is brought to you by Vizual Intelligence, your dedicated team and partner for data strategy, innovation, AI, and data analytics solutions. As a special thanks to our listeners, Vizual Intelligence is offering a free exclusive AI tool every season. This season, it's the Google Trends AI Data Analytics Assistant. This tool offers actionable intelligence on market trends and consumers' interests using Google search data. It's our way of helping you leverage AI without the need of a big data team. Use the link below and enter your email in order to get access to the tool. Also, you can visit us at visualintelligence.com if you need any assistance in anything data, AI, or data analytics related.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, first of all, we have to be open to the eventualities that the AI may not be able to answer all the questions. I think you know it already, but right? But I also think that as we move along, as month passes by, I'm deliberately not using years because things are changing month over month, right? As the month goes by, I think the AI is going to get more and more crisp and thereby trying to solve the problems that you called as blockers, right? So that is one thing. Secondly, I think we still need to be able to not just use the code that AI gives you as a boilerplate, and you want to put in your mix a little bit, even though if it is adding a new column in a SQL or maybe making a function or updating a function which comes out of it, because that is what makes it yours. Because just think about a time that you want an AI to build a function for you, and then somebody else in the entire world says that, hey, find me a function like this and just replicate it for me, right? It will just replicate the function that you wanted to use, thereby making too much competition for the same functions that you have. You might be using in different contexts, but if you're using in the same context, it's just competing with each other. So I believe the AI can take you to a 99% solution, but there has to be 1% mix of your own thing, maybe updating or anything of that flavor, because that gives uniqueness towards it. Because I anticipate 99% of the things are going to be standard these days in terms of coding. Yeah.
So I'll just kind of play a little devil's advocate to that one.
Yeah.
I think for something like this, it's a function is a function. It does it does what it does.
Yeah.
Right. How you use the function is to me what is different. So in the simple example of the financial analyst, right, I have to decide what functions make sense to give to this financial analyst to perform whatever he wants, right? Like he needs to be able to get the financial data. He needs to be able to connect to this to get industry data. He needs to be able to get news articles. He needs to be able to get knowledge from like I have to come up with what is important for him to get and what functions to give him.
Yeah.
But to actually build the functions, like I don't really need to put my input on how to build those functions. Just give me what I need. Right.
Yeah.
So I think there's the part, and which is what I was saying, like the part of building specific things is going to go away because it's going to be easy. It's how do I strategize and put those things together to make sense or to do something innovative where I think the value is going to come in at. That's where you become valuable. Kind of the saying of like, somebody can have a million ideas. It's about implementing them, right?
Yeah.
Now implementing them is easy.
Yes.
Like now I feel like ideas is going to be harder.
It's going to be hard. Yeah.
And I think coming up with those ideas and figuring out how to do different things are going to be valued more than they were before, because now, we can implement them. I'm gonna have Allie. I call my AI Allie. I'm gonna have Allie implement it for it, right? And before it's like no, like everybody has a million ideas. It's like I know the same as like ideas are like a butthole or something like that, right? It's like, but now that's gonna be valuable because everyone can implement. Like now we need to come up with ideas that AI is not coming up with. Like that's going to be the value now. And so I think
and simple answer to getting the most value is getting as close to the need of the customer that you're serving, and you will understand the value.
Yeah, understanding of the kind of, which is, as an entrepreneur, the one thing is like you need to know your target audience, right? Yeah. The AI doesn't know it as good as you should know it if you're building a product for them. Yeah. So you have to know it very good to be able to tell the AI what to build. And I think that's where the value is you need to be that person. And if you're that person, you're safe. If you're the one building the functions, you're not safe. So that's my viewpoint on actually the challenges of building it.
Absolutely.
Just kind of recap, you don't know what it's going to do. It's you have to accept it though. Like you don't know what it's going to do, but it's going to be more efficient. Also, just the agile of the tech coming out. Like everything's coming out. So like, there's a million different models coming out constantly with new features. Being able to test and write your code to be able to like, let's see, Gemini is better than Claude, or let's see this is better than that. Like being able not to be focused on one specific model is also important. Another challenge is trying to articulate to people that are not in the industry why your AI is not working how you think it's going to work. Yeah. And you just got to accept it. And then telling them that is kind of like, how do you say like, I know I told it to do this, but it doesn't always do that. So you just got to go with it. And they're just like, well, I paid you to build it. But but I can't control it. and that's hard articulating that and getting people to understand that too. So as far as your takeaways, what do you think your takeaways for the challenges?
I think my takeaways from the challenges are that it is an unknown field and we should not make decisions very fast. We need to take a step back, understand what the implications are, and then make a decision. That is not to me to say that, hey, you need to wait and then watch, but wait, assess, and then decide. Okay. Secondly, it'll be this revolution is here. AI revolution is here. We have to adapt. So there is no questions about that. Yeah. So coming out of the mindset and be a growth mindset person. And the third piece is we all are in this together. Startups, big tech companies, we are all trying to figure it out. Yeah. So where we can help each other out and make the best use of it, because overall we are making humanity more productive, thereby making a lot of people's life better as you have found it earlier. Right. So my more intention is basically to make everyone's life better than I had already found it.
I'm going to be sipping throughout, just so you know. All right. Welcome to Binary View Podcast, a dual perspective discussion podcast on AI and data analytics. I am Tyler Levin, the solo entrepreneur.
Thanks, Tyler. Oh, shit.
What the fuck was that? Thanks, Tyler. You thought you're a news broadcaster? That sounded just like a news. We were like, thanks, Tyler. So over here. All right. Good luck on a good season.
Good season. Yeah.
Let's get this going.
I feel like this podcast was in the making from past 10 years.
Right.